Behind me sit 3 different Sport Series McLaren cars, all of them different in their own ways, yet incredibly similar and based on the same chassis. The McLaren 570S chassis is one of the best entry-level supercars a guy can get. There's a ton of things that these have to offer that nothing else in the price bracket can. And there's a ton of reasons why this should be the first supercar you buy. They all have doors that go up, carbon fiber chassis, tons of exotic looks and cool features sprinkled throughout. They're just absolutely fantastic. Today, we're gonna talk through a little bit of what makes these 3 cars different and unique in their own ways, and why the 570S chassis is a phenomenal place to start in the world of supercars. Let's get into it. Looking at car number 1, this is a 2016 car that's got approximately 54,000 kilometers on the clock, and this is a 570S. You'll see why that's relevant here in a couple of minutes, but this is a 570S and it is in a super beautiful spec. Obviously, all 3 of these cars have a ton of the same features, but thing number 1 that is super cool, there isn't really anything else in this price bracket that you get that doors go up. It is something unique kind of to the McLarens. If you look on the Lambo side of things, you need to go up to a V12 car to get doors that go up. If you look at your Ferraris or some of your other cars where doors go up is an option, usually that is something that is reserved to the super high-end, super expensive cars. When you look at the world of McLarens, with these as kind of the entry-level point, it's not the case. You know, every McLaren you buy has doors that go up in some way. They don't all go up in the same like this does. Something like a 765 or a 720S are a little bit different, but these do still have doors that go up, and that is super cool as a guy's looking at getting into your first supercar. This car in particular as well does have carbon ceramics. It's something that not all these cars are optioned with, but this specific one is, which is quite fantastic. Taking a look, this is the cheapest priced of the 3 cars. This one comes in around $168,000. It's a little bit cheaper due to the mileage, but it is still a beautiful spec. It doesn't have tons and tons of exterior carbon. The ceramic brakes is a huge expensive option that kind of fits under the bill of carbon, not quite, but kind of, and that's pretty fantastic. Outside of that though, it doesn't have the carbon roof or the door carbon diffuser, splitter, etc, but that's all right. It still looks super exotic. These cars are still super lightweight. They handle super well. Having the carbon fiber on these cars does help with resale value a bit, especially dependent on the rest of the spec of the car. But in this specific case, the spec is still very nice, and it really doesn't hurt the value of the car that much that it doesn't have a ton of exterior carbon. Especially when you look, it is in McLaren orange. It does have the orange seat belts, the orange stitch. You come take a peek at the inside, you'll see what I'm talking about here. We've got the orange dash, we've got the orange on the bottom of the steering wheel, some orange stitching, some orange inserts. It's a very nicely spec'd car. We've got the Bowers & Wilkins audio and lots of the premium features to offer with these. And this is as well the only one of these cars that we have that has the Alcantara dash, which is super nice, and you don't get any glare from the sun. This specific car is 100% factory as well, which is quite nice. The only upgrades are things for just usability. It has full PPF front to back, and it does have a radar/laser detection system, which is super fantastic. And I mean, I don't know, it's hard to go wrong with an orange McLaren. The gold flake that's in this paint absolutely pops. You get this car outside and it just shines. It's so gorgeous. It's definitely a beautifully spec'd, fantastic entry-level supercar. Looking at car number 2, this is the highest spec'd one of these cars that we have. This one comes in at a bit of a higher price bracket at about $180,000, and it is very highly spec'd. It's cool because the paint on this is incredibly similar to the paint on that. It also has that kind of shifty metallic gold flake in it. And again, you get this car out in the sun, especially for silver, which can be a boring color depending on the paint itself. This one is not. It really shines and it really sparkles. It turns out very nice. This car has a ton of exterior carbon as compared to the orange car, especially. It has lots and lots of exterior carbon. We've got the carbon mirror caps. We've got some of the carbon on the front end here with the splitters. And then if we come take a peek at the side, We've actually got the carbon intake scoops, all the door carbon, along with that mirror cap. And in back, we've got the carbon engine cover as well, which is a very, very cool option. And underneath, the diffuser is all carbon fiber as well. The interior spec of this car is super, super cool. It's kind of a mix of leather and Alcantara. It is full Alcantara seats. It doesn't have the Alcantara dash. It does have the leather dash, which still looks very good in its own way. You got some red inserts and lots to offer on that side of things. Obviously, this car does have the carbon ceramics as well. It's got a higher spec wheel, which is kind of cool. It's also 100% factory. It's not been modified. It's not been tuned in any way, shape, or form. And this car is super, super low mileage. It's only got 29,000 kilometers on the clock. And this isn't something specific to this car, but it is specific to these cars. I'll pop the trunk and show you something quite cool. See, this specific car has a car cover and some of the original documentation inside, which the car cover takes up a bunch of the room. You can see as far as a frunk goes, the front trunk space in this car is huge. You compare this to any of the other mid-engine cars in here, this is one of the biggest frunks available, which is fantastic if you're looking for something with space. And on top of that, if we take a peek on the inside through the window here, you'll see there is space behind the seats up top as well. That's super, super useful, and you've got enough space. So you could put a bag, you could put a duffel bag, a hoodie, a backpack, whatever back there, and still have lots and lots of room up front as well. So as far as something that's mid-engine, these are quite useful cars from the standpoint of going on a road trip, spend time in, to daily use a little bit. I know these cars have a reputation for not really being all that dailyable. I disagree. These cars love to be driven. They love, love, love to be driven. Most people, where you start seeing issues with the McLarens in general is when they sit and when they're not tendered. You keep these cars on a trickle charger, you keep these cars running every once in a while, they are quite happy. And then if we jump on over to door number 3, this car is quite unique and I absolutely love it. These two cars are technically 570Ss. They're both 2016s. This is a 2017, but it is a 540C. And it's the same chassis, it's the same car, but this is technically from McLaren, the base entry point into this world. This car being 540 metric horsepower versus 570. The only difference there is tuning, and it's just a way for them to differentiate this model from these. Because outside of that, the only difference between a 540C and a 570S is just the base spec. There isn't really carbon options available on the exterior for this car the same way there is for these. That's about it. There isn't too many other distinguishing factors, especially because it's so dependent on the way you spec the car. And personally, I love how this car is spec'd. I actually have spoken with the gentleman who sold the car new from the McLaren dealer in Vancouver. And this is a very uniquely ordered spec. The guy waited a very long time, never seen another one like this, neither has he with the blue over peanut butter. And for a 540C, this specific car is very, very well spec'd. I love the color on the outside. Of course, being a 540C, that's why we have the matte colored plastic on the ground instead of the gloss plastic that's kind of painted gray like on the other two cars. And then of course we've got some black on the exterior. That is one of the modifications with this car, is these wheels have been painted black. Obviously we see the black down the side and gray down the side, similar to the orange car, and that continues on into the back. You see the same thing on the engine bay cover, the diffuser, and whatever else. But where this car gets really special is if we jump on inside, because the inside there's lots and lots of carbon bits. On the outside, this right here is about the only carbon bit you're gonna find. But if you jump on in with me here, we're gonna go hop in the car and I'll show you a few more things. So there is a lot of cool stuff inside these cars, but this car in general, obviously being a 17, it's got the updated steering wheel and a couple other things, but obviously tons of carbon, tons and tons of carbon, which for a 540 is very, very rare. And it does make this interior a super nice place to be. We've got carbon fiber trim around all our control stack here. We've got carbon fiber trim around the infotainment, carbon on the wheel, the airbag logo here. Obviously, these are the upgraded paddle shifters, which none of the other McLarens we have in inventory have. Is quite cool. They're carbon fiber, and beyond being carbon fiber, they're a little bit bigger than the standard ones. Outside of that though, obviously the beautiful brown leather interior, which I really love. This car has the Bowers & Wilkins upgraded audio package, which means there's another tweeter here and better door speakers along with a couple other things. Outside of that, these cars have a lot of quirky things in the interior that I absolutely love. Like, for example, as we're talking about these paddles, you can actually push or pull the paddles in either direction and it will shift up or down. So if you want, you can grab a paddle or push a paddle with either hand, which means this is one of the only paddle shifted cars that a person can drive with either hand and drive one-handed. It's a very, very cool thing. The infotainment is super easy to use in these cars, which is quite fantastic. The screen takes a little bit more getting used to, but that's all right. You have this stock down here, which goes through all your menu options, but these cars will show you tire temperature. These cars will show you oh so many things, your battery level and whatever else. Your nose lift is also controlled by that stock. All three of these cars have nose lift, which is super, super useful. It's a little bit of a quirk of the interiors of these cars. The seat controls are on the inside, not on the outside. And these ones are electric, depending. Some of them are electric, some of them are not. They are electric in this car. And outside of that, the kind of final cool thing I'll go over here, the controls, these are super adjustable, but it's really easy to adjust them. Lots of cars, if you want your performance modes set up, you have to spend a bunch of time screwing with things to get it set up. In these cars, you have your adjustment of your handling and your powertrain, but you can set them where you want them, get it dialed in, and then when you want, all you have to do is press active. And all of a sudden, your pre-configured mode is there, ready, and good to go. Which, of course, on a car with active suspension, on these it is electronic versus the hydraulic of the Super Series cars, which is another great point for these being more simple and a little bit less maintenance intensive. The Super Series McLarens, like our 720S, they can be a little bit more intense on a maintenance standpoint because the hydraulic suspension systems on them, whilst fantastic, are really quite complicated. On these, super easy. You have good access and good use to them all right here. You also have launch control. Every one of these McLarens, the launch control is fantastic. And because these have a dual clutch transmission, you can launch them lots and it doesn't hurt them anywhere near as much as it does a single clutch car or something equivalent. And outside of that, these things are just absolutely freaking rapid. Jumping back, looking at this car as an overall, the other really cool part about the 540 specifically, this one is modified because all the McLarens share the same engine. It's a twin turbo V8. They are very, very tunable. This car's got downpipes, blow-off valves, intake, and some tuning. And this is, funny enough, the fastest car in here. It's faster than the 720, it's faster than the stock cars. That's the other cool part about potentially buying a 540 versus a 570. If you can save some money, you may as well. They're super, super tunable. They're all based on the same platform. And if you really, really like the spec, you shouldn't shy away whatsoever from a 540 versus a 570 or any other car. This specific car has 22,000 kilometers on the clock only, and it's priced as well at $180,000. This is the fastest car you're gonna get for $180,000 in a only slightly modified form. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. This is probably my favorite of the three, but they all have their quirks. The 570s are just a great place to enter the supercar world. They're incredibly fast for what they are. They have a ton to offer, and there isn't really anything else in that price bracket that you can get with a carbon tub with doors that go up that's anywhere near as fast. The turbos do hide a little bit of noise. You might get better sound out of some other things like the Lambos or whatever else, but these do definitely have their charms, and being very, very amazing to drive, very, very good handling, and very, very fast fit in that category. Thank you guys so, so much for watching another video. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. Let me know which of the three cars you like best, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Have a great day.